All right. So now let's start with our next section on DC to AC converters, also known as inverters. Part 7 of this course on power electronics. In this, we'll be covering half-wave inverters or half-wave DC to AC conversion, having resistive load, half-wave having resistive and inductive load, and then full-wave H-bridge inverter. In this one, we already know that as we saw in our first lecture, that inverters, they normally are used to convert DC signal into AC signal, or a DC supply into an AC supply. And the applications of these DC to AC converters, also known as inverters, are adjustable speed AC motor drives. Because at the output we have an AC signal, so with using this AC signal at the output, we can have a controllable AC signal which can be used for AC motor drives. And then the uninterruptible power supplies, normally used in labs or in industries, to have uninterruptible AC supplies is from AC mains, where we just use DC input to have a AC input, AC output at the output of these uninterruptible power supplies. And there's several other, like in solar power also. So in solar power also, we have DC to DC converters. And then after DC to DC converters, we have DC to AC converters. So powering using photovoltaic panels or solar panels, inverters have a very nice application or useful application. So we'll do that when we do the photovoltaic application in power electronics. So where we use at the output of DC to DC converter, we connect an inverter to supply the AC signal to the microgrids or nanogrids. Okay, single phase half bridge inverter having resistive load. So single phase half bridge inverter will have just single leg over here, where only Q1, a transistor 1, also a switch 1 and switch 2 denoted by Q2. Only two switches having one leg, you can say, are used, and then these two freewheeling diodes over here connected to the load, a resistive load, and here we have a splittable capacitors, a capacitor halved, having a half voltage supply, which is input supply, DC supply over here. Half of the input DC supply is across this capacitor 1, and half of this DC supply is connected across the, or appearing across the capacitor 2 or the low side capacitor, and half of it is connected at the high side capacitor. So this DC supply Vs is then transformed into an AC supply using these two switches. So at the load we have an AC signal. Okay, so we have 3 wires only. This DC source has this positive terminal wire, a negative terminal wire, and a midpoint wire. So 3 DC wires are required in this case. And 2 choppers, means 2 switches only, Q1 and Q2. And these transistors, Q1 and Q2, they are mutually exclusive, or you can say that they have to be switched on and off alternatively, not together. Otherwise, there is a short circuit. So we can see that each provides the opposite polarity of half of the DC supply. across the load. We'll see that. Now, when Q1, this switch is on and Q2 is off, this will be the flow of current. So this red arrows again show the direction of the flow of the current, because Q2 is off, so the current will not follow this path. So the current will follow this path. So through this load, the current will have a direction from right to left. So this will be the direction of the flow of current. So what will be the value of voltage across this load? It is half of the value of supply. Means whatever we have over here is now appearing at the load. So Vs divided by 2 will appear at the load. Now when Q1 is turned off or opened, Q2 is now closed or switched on, the direction of the flow of current will be through C1 and from left to right, and then back into Q2, through Q2 back into the supply. So we can see the difference that in the previous case, the direction of the flow of current from right to left. In this case, the direction of the flow of current is from left to right. So the voltage across this load will be opposite compared to the previous one. So if previously it was having a positive value, now it has to be reverse value, minus. So alternatively, switching on and off of these two switches, we can have alternate polarity of the voltage across load. Alternating, positive and negative alternating. So we can easily say that this DC supply has been converted into an alternating voltage supply at the load. So this is the waveforms. So this is the output voltage having positive Vs by 2 when Q1 was on, and when Q2 was on, we have minus of Vs by 2. Square wave. Not pure sine wave, but square wave. And this current, because of resistive load, we do not have that much phase shift over here. Pure resistive load, we do not have any phase shift. So this will be the current in switches. When switch Q1 was on, that is the current flowing through switch Q1. And after that, the switch current in Q1 is 0 because switch is turned off. Like in this case, switch is turned off. So no current, which is shown by 0 current over here. Alternatively, in switch 2, when switch 1 was on, the current was flowing through this switch 1. In switch 2, the current was 0. And now when switch Q1 is off, the current in switch Q2 will be flowing, having the value Vs divided by 2R. Because Vs by 2 is the voltage across the load, divided by that resistive load equal to, we get the current. So alternatively, we get the current in both the switches. So mathematically, if we want to analyze, we can easily find out the average voltage at the output. And this is the RMS voltage. Average voltage easily we can find out. RMS voltage, again this supply voltage squared, taken the mean from 0 to time turn on, T on, divided by the total time period. and then taking a square root. And after solving, you get half of the value, which is equal to the average value. So using Fourier series to find out the harmonics. So in this case, we know from the Fourier series in previous lectures, output voltage is a summation of cosine components and sine components and the DC voltage or the DC component. The DC component is 0 at the output because we only have the AC component, no DC component at the output. So we only have the AC signal. So DC component is 0. And the cosine functions are also 0. So we only have the sinusoidal. So we have negative voltage from minus pi to 0 or from pi to 2 pi, and positive voltage from 0 to pi. So solving this, we get twice of Vs divided by n pi. N can be any value from 1, 3, 5 because we're talking about the odd harmonics. So the output voltage is now summation, because this is 0 DC component and the cosine component is also 0. So we are remaining with only the sine component. So this is the value of Bn, these coefficients. So Bn correlated or multiplied by sine n omega t, sine omega. So this will be our output voltage, which is a sum of all these components. And for the first component, means the fundamental component, having n equal to 1, we have this value 2Vs divided by pi. And then solving it, sine omega t, n equal to 1, we get this one. Fundamental component of this voltage, denoted by this, is 0.45 times the supply voltage. So easily we can find out other components, harmonic components also, the third harmonic or the fifth harmonic and so on. Putting n equal to 3, 5 and so on. We can find out all the magnitudes of all harmonic components. And fundamental harmonics or fundamental component is actually what we want at the output. So now what about the RL load? Single phase half bridge inverter for RL load. So this is an inductive load over here having a small resistive value. Again, two switches, Q1 and Q2, freewheeling diodes. These two capacitors C1 and C2 to split this voltage into half. And this is the third terminal. First positive terminal, negative terminal, and the mid terminal. Okay, now considering the load to be inductive, now we need to turn off these two switches. So when this switch was turned on, Q1, the current follows this path and the inductor is fully energized, or the inductor is energized, or the current has ramped when Q1 was turned on. So when Q1 was turned on, the current direction was from supply to through this Q1, through this load L, and then back into through this C2 and back into the supply. So due to this flow of current, the inductor gets energized. And now when switch Q1 is turned off, whatever current ramped during Q1 switched on is now start to deramp or start to decay through this freewheeling diode in this direction. So whatever voltage at this, we have Vs by 2. And this current starts to decay. through this D2. So whatever energy was stored in this inductor starts to decay through D2. Now, again, when Q2 was switched on, the ramping up through this load happened. And once this Q2 is again turned off, deramping of this current will happen through D1 now. And at the output, we have a Vs by 2 high, means the high side. So this will be our current waveform over here. D1 is on, here Q1 was on. And when Q1 was on, a ramping up of the inductor current will happen, as we saw. And when Q1 was turned off, through D2, the current starts to freewheel. This one, the current was freewheeling through D2. So we know during freewheeling, the current always decays or ramp down or falls. So the current starts to decay during freewheeling. And again, when Q2 was turned on, this Q2 was turned on, the current again starts to ramp up through this load and then freewheeled through D1. So current was ramping up in opposite direction. We see that. When through Q1, the current was flowing from right to left. And when Q2 is on, the current starts to flow from left to right through this inductance, through this load, through this Q2 and then back. So the direction of the ramping of the current when Q2 is on is in the opposite direction. And then again, it freewheels through D1. And the maximum value of the current will decay to 0 in opposite direction. So again, an alternating waveform. So the current in this load is alternating depending upon the switching on of Q1 and Q2 alternatively. So during Q1, the direction of the flow of current is from right to left. And during Q2 turning on, the direction of the flow of current through this load is from left to right. So it is opposite. So it is always alternating between left to right or right to left and vice versa. So the presence of inductance will give us the ramping up and ramping down of the the current, the load current. And again, to find out the harmonic components, following the same concept using Fourier series, we can find out the value of the voltage harmonic components, including the fundamental components, and the current harmonic components and the fundamental component. The only difference over here is we have the impedance. In previous case, only R component was there. Now in this case, in RL load, we have the another imaginary component, which is N omega L. So just by using this, following the same concept as we followed in resistive load, we can find out the harmonic components for voltage as well as the current. So in this case, if we want to find out the power also, fundamental power component, fundamental voltage component multiplied by the fundamental current component, then multiplied by the power factor. Because in pure resistive load, the power factor cos theta 1 will be 0. But now if we have the inductive load, we can have a presence of power factor cos theta 1, which is equal to this one, tangent inverse of XL divided by R. Okay, so just assuming that if this inverter is lossless, average power absorbed by the load is actually equal to the average power supplied by the source. Whatever power we have supplied from the input is actually received at the output, or absorbed at the, or consumed at the output or at the load. So then we can say the inverter is lossless ideally. For inductive load, the current we know that is approximately sinusoidal depending upon the value of the inductance. If the inductance is fairly large, then we have more smoother current to flow. And the fundamental component of the output voltage supplies the power to the load, as we saw in the previous slide, like in this case. So fundamental component is actually the biggest component contributing to the power consumed at the load. Okay, so from 0 to the complete time period, this will be our supply current, instantaneous value, which is equal to the fundamental component, sinusoidal, multiplied by the fundamental component of the current. So fundamental component of voltage multiplied by fundamental component of current, having a phase angle due to the presence of inductance, which is equal to the supply current. And after solving this integral, we can easily find out the value of this supply current due to the contribution of fundamental component of voltage at the output. Because at the input we have a DC supply. So in DC supply, only DC component is there. And at the output we have a AC supply, or AC conversion. So at the output we have alternating voltage or alternating current, which has several components, including fundamental and then superimposed with harmonic components. But harmonic components can have very small energy, so most of the energy is occupied by the fundamental component, as I have explained in previous lectures. So most of the energy is accommodated in the fundamental component. So that's why if we calculate the fundamental power, then we can easily find out the total power. So the fundamental component of this voltage multiplied by the output current will give us the, and then this power factor due to the presence of inductance. We'll get the current over here. So harmonic factor of the nth harmonic, which is the RMS value of the nth harmonic and the RMS value of the fundamental, means the first harmonic. That is called the harmonic factor. So total harmonic distortion is the most important parameter while designing any converter. So the converters designed in industry have to have the analysis of total harmonic distortion, because it measures the closeness in shape between a waveform and its fundamental component. If fundamental component and the total waveform have the similar shape, almost same, so we can say that the harmonic content is negligible in this particular design, which is good, very good. So if there is a big disturbance in shapes or waveforms between the fundamental component and the total output, then it means that the total output waveform at the output has a lot of harmonic components which are actually causing the distortion, because fundamental component is the actual requirement at the output. All other harmonics are waste. We have to get rid of all these harmonics. So that's why this total harmonic distortion will give us the measure that what is the quality of the output. Higher value of total harmonic distortion means lower quality of, of a device. Let's say in this case inverter. So it's a low quality inverter. If total harmonic distortion value is very less, it means it's a high quality inverter. Just to give you a basic idea. So this term you have, I think you have already studied in previous classes. So what is this? This total harmonic distortion. This is the harmonic component. So harmonic component taking square root of the square and then summing all these harmonic components together. So let's say this is the harmonic component value for second harmonic, n equal to 2. Square it, taking square root will give and dividing it by the fundamental, plus third harmonic. So square of the value of the third harmonic taking square root plus square of the harmonic of the fourth harmonic taking square root plus square of the harmonic for the fifth harmonic taking square root and so on, and then dividing it by the fundamental will give us the total harmonic distortion. So ideally all these should be 0. So VO1 is the actual requirement at the output. So if all these n equal to 2 till infinity are 0, so this V square will be 0, summing all values to 0 will be 0, 0 divided by V01 will be, so distortion will be 0. Total harmonic distortion will be 0. So no distortion. That is ideal case. But in practice, these components are not 0. But for high quality inverter, these values have to be very, very low, as low as possible or negligible. So we need to design our circuit in such a way. Then distortion factor, which indicates the amount of harmonic distortion remaining in a particular waveform after they have been attenuated. Attenuated means they have been suppressed or filtered out. So first the harmonics are calculated and then techniques are applied to suppress them or remove them by filtering. And after removing them using filtering, we can again find out that what is the amount of harmonic distortion remaining after filtering the harmonics. One is before filtering or before removing the harmonics to find out the distortion. Second is after removing the harmonics, how much distortion is actually remaining inside the device. That is distortion factor. So lowest order harmonic, because third order harmonic or second order harmonic, they are the lowest order harmonics, very close to fundamentals. Okay. Now, after this, let's do the single phase full bridge inverter. So now in this full bridge inverter, we have 2 legs. In half bridge, we were having only 2 switches over here, just making 1 leg over here. Now we have 4 switches, 4 transistors, making 2 legs. And in between these 2 legs, we have a load over here. So now we can just see that, okay, just using 4 switches, we can have a full bridge inverter. So again, 3-wire DC source, one terminal, second, and then the middle terminal over here. And instead of two switches, we have 4 switches and four freewheeling diodes and 2 split capacitors as in the half wave inverter case. Now this Q1 and Q2, they can be switched together, but not at the same time as this group of Q3 and Q4. So Q1 and Q2 will form one group, Q3 and Q4 will form second group. These two groups have to be switched on and off alternatively. So this Q3 and Q1, the gate signals used to trigger these switches have to be isolated. Why? Because they are connected to the high potential of the battery. So they need isolation. These Q2 and Q4 are connected to the ground, so isolation may not be required. So, as in the half wave case, both the switches provide us the opposite polarity. Q1 provided us the Vs by 2 and Q2 provided us minus Vs by 2. In this case, now we have divided this into two groups. Q1, Q2 is one group or one pair, Q3, Q4 as second pair. So both these pairs will give us the opposite polarity. So let's say first pair Q1 and Q2 is on and Q3 and Q4 is off. So in this case, we have V output over here at the load is equal to the V supply, because now the current, when this Q1 and Q2 both are on, the current will follow this path through this load from left to right. So whatever supply we have over here is now appearing at the load. So complete supply, assuming all the switches to be ideal in nature, so complete voltage supply without any voltage drop in between will be appearing at the load. So is equal to Vs equal to Vdc. Now, this first pair is off now, Q1 and Q2 is off now. They were on in first case, now they are off. And now the second pair is turned on, Q3 and Q4 are turned on. Now the direction of the flow of current is through Q3 from B to A and then back into the supply. So the direction of the flow of current is now reverse compared to this one. In first Q1, Q2 on, the direction of the flow of current is from A to B. In this case, when Q3 and Q4 are on, the direction of the flow of current is from B to A, so opposite. So now this potential across this load is minus Vs, reversed from the previous case. Now when Q1 and Q3 are on, these Q2 and Q4 are off, the current will flow through this load through this freewheeling diodes. Sorry, through this Q1 and Q3. So if this current is flowing through this Q1 and Q3 through this load, no voltage is appearing across this load, so the load will have a zero voltage across at the output. Now when Q2 and Q4 are turned on, the direction of the flow of current will follow this path, and at this load we do not have any voltage across this. So the voltage across load is 0. Now, again assuming a highly inductive load, we need to turn off all the four switches Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So both the pairs are off now. Now the current will freewheel through these diodes. D4 from A to B and then through D3 and then back into the supply. Again, when all these switches are off, the current will follow this path D2 from B to A through this load and then D1 and then back into the supply. So freewheeling keeps on happening in both directions, through D3 or through D4 from A to B and then D3 and then back, and through D2 from B to A and then back. Now, this basic square wave operation normally used for Indian applications, 50 Hertz or 60 Hertz applications. Using the previous circuit, now showing it graphically, Q1 and Q2 are turned on. So the load voltage or the output voltage through A and B is equal to VDC, which is same as supply voltage Vs. And when Q1 and Q3 are closed, output is 0. We saw that in previous circuit. When Q3 and Q4, another pair is on, then we have negative of the supply voltage, shown by the blue arrows showing us the direction of the flow of the current. And when Q2 and Q4 are closed, output is 0. So here we can see that VDC, when Q1 and Q2, one pair is on, this VDC we see, and then we have a 0 voltage over here when Q1 and Q3 are closed, so we have 0 voltage. Again, after that, we have a minus of VDC voltage. Again, we have a 0 voltage, and the cycle continues like this. So normally we can see that the switching on of Q1 and Q3 are not required. It's just a wastage because at the output we are not getting anything. But we can use this mode when Q1 and Q3 are switched on, just to vary the RMS voltage. So if we want to increase RMS voltage, we do away with this, means we don't use this switching on Q1 and Q3. We should not use this. If we want to lower down the value of RMS output or average output, then we can insert this 0 value inside this. We can insert this 0. If we don't want to insert this 0, we can have a smooth square wave, and we can have only 2 modes of operation. One is Q1, Q2 closed or turned on VDC. Another is Q3, Q4 on, having minus VDC. So VDC minus VDC. So we do not want to have this discontinuous value over here. So depending upon our requirement, whether to reduce RMS at the output or increase RMS at the output or increase RMS value of output, we can insert these 0 outputs in the operation of this switch inverter. So very important to understand that. So several applications need to have a lower value of output voltage. So just by using the same inverter, same switches, same load, we can just insert any of these states inside. So this is again the load current as we saw in the half wave case, half wave inverter case. Here D1 and D2 are turned on, we are ramping up. Q1 and Q2 are turned on, we are ramping up. D3 and D4 are turned on, we are ramping down. We are ramping down, as we saw in the previous circuit, and Q2 and Q4 are ramping up in opposite direction, and so on. Square wave inverter, we have just saw this one in the previous circuit using this circuit analysis as well as the graphical analysis. So this is called a square wave inverter because at the output we get a square wave. So it is simplest of the switching scheme to get a square wave at the output. Switches connect the load to VDC when Q1 and Q2 are on, and to minus VDC when Q3 and Q4 are on. Periodic switching of load between plus VDC and minus VDC. So when this alternating output is non-sinusoidal, we've seen that it is square wave, not pure sinusoidal, but it is alternating between positive and negative. Positive half cycle, as we saw from here. So this is a positive half cycle, this is the negative half cycle. But still, in some applications, this square wave alternating AC signal can be used. So load current waveform depending on load component. So the load component, if it is pure resistive, if it is R and L load, then we can have a smoother output, more sinusoidal. As we increase the value of L, we have a smoother sinusoidal. So for RL load, the same analysis which we performed for AC to DC converters for rectifiers, that this output current is a superposition of forced component and a natural component of the current. So forced component is this simple VDC output, VDC, which is the supply voltage divided by the resistance. And then the natural response, which is exponential. We saw that in AC to DC converters, same concept. And we can easily find out from 0 to half of the time period, we can easily find out the value of that magnitude A, which is minimum value of current minus the current VDC by R supply. So this is the time constants L by R. And then from T by 2 to the total time period T, when Q1 and Q2 are off and Q3 and Q4 are on. So the voltage at the load is now minus VDC. So we have the output current, which is minus VDC by R plus the same natural component from T minus T by 2. And now B is the magnitude of this current component, natural current component, which can be found out using the maximum value of current plus VDC by R, same. And then we can use both of these equations, equation 1, which is this, during the turn on of Q1 and Q2, and equation 2 during the turning on of Q3 and Q4, the other pair. Summing them all together from 0 to T by 2, we have this value of current due to the switching on of Q1 and Q3. And from T by 2 to T, this will be the current at the output due to the switching on of the second pair, which is Q3 and Q4. And then we know that we have a symmetry in inductive current. The net value will be 0. So the minimum value will be equal to the maximum value, opposite in nature. So we can easily find out these using symmetry concept. We can easily find out this value. And from this maximum and minimum current, we can get the RMS value. And from this, we can easily find out the power.